Hello, and welcome to Fear Noir. Before we begin, take a moment to leave a comment and let me know where you're listening from. I always love reading them. If you enjoy slow, unsettling stories that gently pull you into the darkness, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now, get comfortable, let your body become still, and allow the noise of the outside world to fade into silence. Tonight, the darkness has a story waiting just for you. So close your eyes, listen closely, and let yourself drift into Fear Noir. Story 1. I used to think people who bought doorbell cameras were too nervous about everything. That sounds foolish to me now. Before everything happened, I was the kind of person who rolled my eyes at those neighborhood app posts. You know the ones. Someone would upload a blurry video of a man walking past their trash bins at 2 a.m. and write, "Does anyone know this person?" Like the poor man was not simply walking home after a drink or taking a shortcut through the street. My sister bought the camera for me when I moved into my new house. "It will make me feel better," she told me. I looked at her and laughed. "It will make you feel better? You live alone now," she said. That was how everyone spoke after the breakup. They never said, "You are single now," or "You finally have your own place." They always said, "You live alone now," like it was some kind of illness. Like being alone was something that needed a warning label. The house was nothing special. It was a small 2-bedroom terrace at the end of a row. If I walked fast, I could reach town in 10 minutes. If I walked slowly, it took about 20. The outside was red brick. The hallway was narrow. The garden was tiny. The carpets were old and smelled a little like the cheap air freshener the last owner must have used. At first, every noise in the house had a reason. The pipes clicked when the heating came on. The fridge hummed at night. The floorboards made soft cracking sounds when the temperature changed. Sometimes I could hear my neighbor coughing through the wall. Normal house sounds, normal things. But normal things feel different when you are lying in bed at 3 a.m. and hearing all of them at once. I had been living there for 6 weeks when the first notification came. It was a Thursday night. I was still at work because my manager had decided, half an hour before closing, that the stockroom needed to be properly sorted out. That meant I got home later than usual, and by then I hated everyone and everything. I was sitting in the staff room with a coffee from the vending machine, waiting for my sister to reply to a text about Saturday, when my phone buzzed. "Front door, person detected." The small preview on the screen was almost completely black, except for the yellow glow from my porch light. I tapped it. The live feed took a few seconds to load. The little circle spun on the screen. Then I saw myself. I was standing outside my own front door. Same black work trousers, same green coat, same hair tied back badly because I had forgotten a hair tie and used an elastic band from the office drawer. Same tired face. She was looking straight into the camera. My brain seemed to trip over itself. It was like missing a step in the dark. For a second, I looked around the staff room, thinking someone might be playing a joke on me. But there was nobody there. Just the vending machine, a few dirty mugs by the sink, and rain tapping against the high window. On my phone, the other me lifted her hand and knocked. 3 times. I heard it through the app. Knock, knock, knock. Then she leaned closer to the camera and smiled. It was not a wide horror movie smile. It was small, tired, familiar. It was my smile. "I'm home," she said. I dropped the phone. It hit the plastic table so hard that my coffee shook. For a few seconds, I just stared at it, lying face down. while my heart hammered against my ribs so hard it hurt. Then I picked it up again. The feed had disconnected. I opened it once more. The porch was empty. There was nobody there. I watched the screen for almost a full minute. Rain moved through the porch light. My front door was closed. Everything looked ordinary. Then I checked the saved clips. There was no clip. That bothered me more than anything at first. The app saved everything. It saved cats. It saved delivery drivers. It saved my neighbor's teenage son smoking by the wall when he thought nobody could see him. But the clip of me standing at my own front door while I was 3 miles away at work did not exist. I called my sister. She answered by saying, "What happened?" "I think someone was at my door," I said. "Are you home?" "No, I'm still at work." "Then don't go home yet." I saw myself. There was silence. Then she said, "What do you mean?" The camera went off. I opened it. I was there, outside my house. That's not funny. I know it's not funny. Could it be someone who just looks like you? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe it was someone with the same coat, the same hair, and the same body shape. A strange coincidence in bad porch lighting. But she had my face, and she had my voice. "I don't know," I said. My sister came and picked me up from work. We went to the house together. The street looked normal when we arrived. Wet cars were parked along the road. Curtains were closed. Trash bins stood by the curb. My porch light was still buzzing softly above the door. There was nobody waiting outside, nobody in the alley, no strange version of me standing under the yellow light. My sister made me stay in the car while she walked up the path. "Don't," I said. "I'm just checking the lock," she replied. She tried the handle. It was locked. Then she bent down and looked through the letterbox. After that, she crouched and touched the doormat. "What?" I called from the car. She did not answer. When she came back, her face had changed. "There's a footprint," she said. "So?" "It's barefoot." I laughed because I did not know what else to do. "What?" "It's wet." "On your mat." Like someone stood there without shoes. I got out of the car even though she told me not to. She was right. There was one wet footprint on the brown doormat. I could see the toes, the heel, and the curved shape of the foot. It was small, about my size. I was wearing boots. My sister wanted me to stay at her house that night. I almost agreed. But standing outside my own home, staring at that locked door, something stubborn woke up inside me. I was tired. I was cold. I had work the next morning. I hated the idea of being scared out of my own home because of a glitch, a prank, or some person trying to frighten me. So we went inside together. We turned on every light. The hallway, the living room, the kitchen, the stairs, the landing, both bedrooms, the bathroom. Nothing. There was nobody under the beds. The back door had not been forced open. The windows were not broken. There were no muddy or wet footprints inside. My sister checked the loft hatch with a broom handle and nearly hit herself in the head when it moved half an inch. "It's empty," I said. She stared at me. "You saw yourself at the door." "I saw something on a tiny screen, in bad light, with your voice." Maybe the app played an old clip. An old clip of you knocking on your own door barefoot? I did not have an answer for that. She stayed with me until almost midnight. We drank tea we did not really want and watched a cooking show with the volume turned up too loud. Before she left, She made me promise to call her if anything else happened. After she was gone, I locked the front door. I put the chain on, I checked the back door twice. Then I took a knife from the kitchen drawer. I felt stupid carrying it upstairs. I felt even stupider putting it on the bedside table. I did not sleep much. At 3:22 in the morning, my phone buzzed. Front door, person detected. The phone was lying face up beside the knife. Front door, person detected. Front door, person detected. I picked it up. The live feed showed my porch. Rain, door, mat, nothing else. Then the handle moved. Not a lot, just a small twitch downward. I stopped breathing. The handle moved down, then up, then down again, then up again. Someone was trying the door from outside. Slowly, carefully, I slipped out of bed and crept to the top of the stairs. From there I could see the front door at the bottom of the hall. It was just a dark shape, with the metal chain shining faintly across it. The handle moved again. This time I saw it with my own eyes. I called 999. The operator asked me questions. I whispered the answers. My address. My name. Was I alone? Was the person still there? Could I get to a room with a lock? While I was talking, the handle stopped moving. Then my phone buzzed again. It was not the doorbell app this time. It was a text message from my own number. Open the door. I forgot my keys. I almost dropped the phone down the stairs. The operator asked what had happened. I got a text. I whispered. From who? From me. From my own number. Then the letterbox lifted. A strip of darkness appeared near the floor. A moment later, fingers slid through. 4 fingers, wet and pale. They moved slowly, feeling around on the inside of the door, reaching for the chain. I ran. I locked myself in the bathroom. I sat in the bath with the knife in my hand and the phone pressed hard against my ear. The operator kept telling me the police were on their way. From downstairs, I heard the chain move. A soft metal scrape. Then another. I had put the chain on properly. I knew I had. I remembered sliding it into place. I remembered pulling on the door after that to make sure it was secure. But I heard it fall. The front door opened. There was no crash, no kick, no loud break-in. Just the small, normal sound of a door being opened by someone who belonged there. Then there was silence. After a few seconds, I heard footsteps in the hallway, bare feet on the floorboards. Slow, wet, one step, then another. The footsteps stopped at the bottom of the stairs. Then my own voice called up from the hall. I'm home. I do not remember much after that. The police found me sitting in the bath with the knife still in my hand. The front door was closed and locked. The chain was on. There was no sign of forced entry, no wet footprints, no fingerprints on the letterbox except mine and my sister's from earlier. There were no messages from my own number, but the 999 call was real. The operator had heard me crying. She had heard me say, "That's my voice." Still, there was nobody there. One of the police officers was kind. The other looked bored. The kind one asked if I had been under a lot of stress lately. That was when I knew they were finished with me. My sister took me back to her house. I did not argue this time. For 2 days, nothing happened. I slept on her sofa. Not well, but I slept. My sister worked from the dining table and kept looking over at me every few minutes. Her husband tried to act normal. He asked if I wanted toast. He said, very gently, that the mind could do strange things when a person was under stress. I almost believed him. Then, on Saturday morning, While my sister was in the shower and her husband had gone to the shops, my phone buzzed. Front door, person detected. I opened the app. It showed my front door. Daylight, gray morning, rainwater dripping from the gutter. A woman stood on my porch. She was barefoot again, but this time she was wearing my pajamas, the blue ones with the bleach mark on one sleeve, the same pajamas I was wearing at that exact moment on my sister's sofa. She looked into the camera and raised one finger to her lips. Then she turned and walked away. Not down the path, not toward the street. She walked straight through the closed front door. I screamed for my sister. She came running in wrapped in a towel, with shampoo still in her hair. I shoved the phone into her hand. By then, the porch was empty. But this time, the clip had saved. We watched it together, once, twice, 5 times. My sister sat down slowly. "That's you," she said. "I know." She went through the door. "I know." She called the police again. Different officers came this time. They watched the clip and asked if anyone else had access to the account. No. Could the footage have been edited? No. Was I sure I had not gone back to the house that morning? My sister answered that question before I could. She's been on my sofa since Thursday night. The officers went to check my house. 20 minutes later, one of them called. "Are you sure you haven't been back there?" My sister grabbed my wrist when she heard the question. "No," I said. "Why?" "Your bed has been slept in." I closed my eyes. "And there's food in the kitchen bin," he said. "Toast. There's coffee in a mug by the sink. The shower floor is wet." That wasn't me. When he spoke again, his voice was careful. "We're going to arrange for someone to take a proper look around." They did not find anyone. They found signs that someone had been living there, but no sign of how that person had got inside. The locks were not damaged. The windows were fine. The back door was bolted from the inside. The loft was empty, but my clothes had been moved. They had not been stolen, just moved. My green coat was hanging on the back of the kitchen chair. My boots were placed neatly by the front door. My toothbrush was wet. The towel from my normal after-shower routine was damp and folded over the radiator exactly the way I always folded it. In my bedroom, the framed photo of me and my sister had been turned face down. That upset her more than anything else. I did not go back inside the house. I stood on the pavement while the officers went in and out. The neighbors pretended not to watch from behind their curtains, but I could see them. A woman from 3 doors down came over. Her name was Mrs. Harlow. I had only spoken to her twice before, once about the bins and once about a parcel. "Are you all right, love?" she asked. I said yes, because that is what people say when they are not all right. She looked at my house, then at the police car. "Is it happening again?" she asked. My sister heard that. "What do you mean again?" Mrs. Harlow's face tightened. "Nothing, I shouldn't have said anything. What happened before?" I asked. She suddenly looked older, smaller. "The girl before you," she said. "She was only there a few months." "What girl?" "The tenant. Before the house was sold. Quiet girl. I think she worked nights." "What happened to her?" Mrs. Harlow looked at my front door. She said someone was coming in. My sister stepped closer. "Who?" "Herself." The pavement seemed to move under my feet. "She said she kept seeing herself," Mrs. Harlow continued. "In the windows, on that little camera by the door. I thought she was just having a hard time. You never really know what people are going through." "What happened to her?" I asked. "She left." "When?" Mrs. Harlow swallowed. "That's the thing," she said. I didn't see her leave. One day she was there. The next day the curtains were open and the house was empty. The landlord said she had run off and owed rent. What was her name? I can't remember properly. Emily maybe, or Ellie. Then she touched my arm. "I'm sure it has nothing to do with you." But she did not look sure. That night, I stayed at my sister's house again. We turned my phone off completely. Not silent, not on airplane mode. Off. At 2:41 in the morning, my sister's doorbell rang. The sound went through the whole house. Her husband sat up and said, "What the hell?" Nobody moved. Then it rang again. My sister's phone buzzed on the bedside table. She picked it up. I knew what she was seeing before she turned the screen toward me. Her front door camera showed me standing outside, barefoot, in the rain, wearing the blue pajamas. My hair was wet and stuck to my face. My hands hung at my sides. My sister whispered, "You're here." On the screen, the other me lifted her head. She looked into the camera. Then she looked past it, toward the upstairs window, toward us. My sister's husband got out of bed. "Don't," I said. He went to the window and pulled the curtain aside with 2 fingers. The street was empty. Nobody stood at the door. Nobody was on the path. But on the phone screen, I was still there, waiting. Then the other me smiled. The phone buzzed again. A message appeared under the feed. "Front door familiar face detected." My sister made a small, choking sound. Because the app did not say "person detected" like it usually did. It had written my name, not my account name, not my email, my full name. Then the speaker crackled. "She doesn't live there." No one spoke. The other me leaned closer to the camera. "She lives here." Then the feed cut out. All 3 of us stayed in that bedroom until morning. We did not sleep. We barely talked. At sunrise, my sister's husband went downstairs with a cricket bat from the loft. The front step was dry. There were no footprints, no rainwater. But the clip had saved. The police watched it. They took statements. One officer asked if I had any enemies. Another asked if I had ever walked in my sleep. My sister snapped at him. She was in the room with me. He apologized, but I could see what he thought. What all of them thought. A woman living alone gets scared by a strange video. Her sister believes her. They stop sleeping. Their minds fill in the blanks. There are always sensible explanations when you are not the person hearing your own voice outside the door. By Monday, my sister was exhausted. Her husband was scared, even though he kept trying to hide it. I could feel myself becoming a problem in their house. Not because they said it. They did not. They were too kind, and that made me feel worse. So I booked a hotel. My sister hated the idea. "Stay here," she said. "It came here." "So you're going somewhere alone? I can't keep doing this to you." The hotel was a business hotel near the Ring Road. It had a clean, bright lobby and a bored receptionist. My room was on the 3rd floor, room 312. It had a heavy door, a chain, and a keycard lock. There was no letterbox, no back door, no garden, no way for someone to stand outside and knock without being seen by half the building. For a while, I felt safer. For about 6 hours. At 1:13 in the morning, someone knocked at the room door. 3 soft knocks. I froze. The TV was on low. Rain blurred the window. The air conditioner hummed in the corner. Then the knocks came again. 3 more. I picked up the hotel phone and called reception. "There's someone outside room 312, I said. "One moment," the receptionist replied. I heard typing. "Sorry, there shouldn't be anyone up there." Do you want me to send someone? Yes. Is the person still there? I looked at the bottom of the door. A shadow lay beneath it. Then I saw 2 bare feet, toes touching the carpet outside my room. Yes, I whispered. Please lock the door. It is locked. And the chain? I have the chain on. Security is coming. The feet shifted. Then my phone buzzed. I had turned it back on earlier because I needed to call the police, my sister, and the hotel. I had thought it did not matter anymore. I had thought whatever this was had moved beyond the doorbell app. But the notification was not from my doorbell camera. It was from the hotel app. I had not downloaded the hotel app. Room 312. Key card used. The small green light on the door flashed. The handle moved down. The chain caught. The door opened 2 inches and stopped. Through the gap, I saw one eye. My eye. Looking in, the mouth below it smiled. "You're in my room," she whispered. I screamed. The door slammed shut. Not from her side, from mine. It was like someone inside the room had shoved it closed. Then the bathroom light flickered on. I turned slowly. The bathroom door was open. It had been closed before. I always close bathroom doors in hotel rooms because an open bathroom makes the room feel more empty. I could not move. Security found me standing in the middle of the room. I was not screaming anymore. I was just staring at the bathroom doorway. There was nobody inside. They offered me another room. When I refused to stay in it, they gave me coffee in the lobby while I waited for my sister. That was yesterday. Now I am writing this from her kitchen table. My sister is asleep on the sofa because she refuses to leave me alone. Her husband is upstairs. The police have my phone. They have the camera clips, the hotel lock records, and the 999 recording. They have everything except an explanation. I borrowed my sister's laptop to write all of this down. About 20 minutes ago, the laptop pinged. It was an email notification from me, sent from my own email address. Subject: I'm sorry. There was no message, just an attachment. A video file. I should not have opened it. The video was from my front door camera. It was from tonight. My house. My porch light was on. My front door opened. I stepped out. Not the other one. Me, I could tell by then. I do not know how to explain it, except that I had watched her long enough to notice the small differences. She stands too still. She smiles before there is any reason to smile. Her eyes copy her face half a second too late. This was me. I came out barefoot, wearing my green coat over my pajamas. I was crying. Behind me, in the hallway, another figure stood in the dark. Also me. She raised one hand. I walked down the path and disappeared from the frame. The door closed behind me. Then the clip ended. I do not remember going there. I do not remember leaving my sister's house. My feet are clean. My coat is upstairs in her spare room. But the video is real. I can hear my sister breathing on the sofa. I can hear the fridge humming. I can hear cars passing on the wet road outside. And under all of that, I can hear something else. A key turning in the front door. Slowly, carefully, my sister's front door does not open from outside with a key when the deadbolt is on. But I can hear the key turning. The laptop just pinged again. It was not an email this time. It was a notification from my doorbell app, the app that is on my phone, the phone the police have. Front door, person detected. I clicked it. It is showing my sister's front door, not mine. Hers, but the camera angle is wrong. It is too low, like the feed is coming from something crouched on the path. There is a woman standing outside, barefoot, wearing my green coat. holding my sister's spare key, looking straight into the camera. She is not smiling. She looks tired, wet, frightened. She looks exactly like me, and she is whispering the same words again and again. Don't let her in. There is a knock at the door now, but it is not coming from outside. It is coming from inside the house. 3 soft knocks from the cupboard under the stairs. My sister just woke up. She asked me what that sound was. I do not know what to tell her. I do not know which one of us is outside. I do not know which one of us came back. I do not know which one of us is writing this. But if your doorbell camera ever shows you coming home when you know you are somewhere else, do not go back. Do not call out. Do not open the app again. And if you hear your own voice on the other side of the door, begging to be let in, make it prove that it is really you. Because I think I failed that part. I think I let the wrong one in. And now I can hear my sister unlocking the cupboard. Story 2. I do not really know how to begin this. I have been sitting in front of my laptop for almost half an hour, staring at the blank screen, trying to decide where the story should start. I keep asking myself the same thing again and again. Where did it all go wrong? Was it the night of the accident? Was it before that? Was there something already broken in my life that I just never noticed? I honestly do not know anymore. My name is not important. I do not think it matters who I am. What matters is that 3 months ago, I had what I thought was a perfect life. It was not exciting. It was not the kind of life people make movies about. It was quiet, simple, and normal, and I loved it that way. Sarah and I had been married for 6 years. 6 calm, boring, beautiful years. We lived in a small house on Denton Street, a narrow little road with old trees, parked cars, and neighbors who waved but never got too involved in your business. Sarah worked at a school. She was good with children, patient in a way I had never been. I worked from home doing accounting work for small companies. Most days I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, drinking too much coffee and listening to the sound of Sarah moving around the house before she left for work. We had a cat named Biscuit. He was orange, fat, and badly behaved, but we loved him like he was our child. He slept wherever he wanted. He scratched furniture. He knocked mugs off tables if he felt ignored. Sarah always said he was not naughty, just dramatic. Our life was made of small things. Friday night movies, grocery shopping on Sunday mornings, Sarah singing badly while cooking, me pretending to be annoyed when she left lights on in every room, her stealing the blanket in bed, me forgetting to take the bins out, Biscuit crying at closed doors as if he had been abandoned for years. It was normal, so normal that I never thought to be thankful for it. Then October 14th happened. I was driving home from my cousin's place around 11 at night. The rain was coming down hard, the kind of rain that turns the road into a black mirror. My wipers were moving as fast as they could, but they still could not clear the windscreen properly. The streetlights looked stretched and blurry. Every car that passed me sent water spraying across the glass. I remember thinking I should have stayed the night at my cousin's house. That is one of the last clear thoughts I have from before the crash. I do not remember the exact second it happened. People always ask if I saw the truck coming. I did not. I remember the road. I remember the rain. I remember my hands on the steering wheel. Then there was a white flash, a sound like the whole world cracking open, and then nothing. When I woke up, I was in hospital. At first, I did not understand where I was. Everything was too bright. The ceiling above me was white. Something was beeping beside my bed. My body felt heavy and broken, like I had been taken apart and put back together wrong. Then I saw Sarah. She was sitting in the chair beside my bed, holding my hand so tightly that her fingers had gone pale. Her face was swollen from crying. Her mascara had run down her cheeks in dark lines. Her hair was messy, and she looked like she had not slept at all. When she saw my eyes open, she started crying again. "You're okay," she kept saying. "You're okay. You're okay." I tried to speak, but my mouth was dry. She reached for a cup of water and helped me take a sip. Her hands were shaking. The doctor came in later and explained everything. A truck had drifted into my lane. My car was destroyed. I had a cracked rib, a deep cut on my forehead, bruises all over my body, and a concussion. He said I was lucky to be alive. Everyone kept saying that. Lucky, I stayed in hospital for 2 days. Sarah stayed both nights. She slept in that awful chair beside my bed, curled up with her coat over her shoulders. Every time I woke up, she was there. Sometimes she was watching me. Sometimes she was praying quietly. Sometimes she was just holding my hand and staring at the floor. I loved her before the accident. Of course I did. But during those 2 days, seeing her there, seeing how much she cared, I felt something even deeper. I remember thinking that if I got out of that hospital, I would never take her for granted again. When I came home, everything felt normal. For about a week, I wish I could say the change was sudden. I wish I could say there was one big moment, one clear sign, something obvious enough that any normal person would have run. But it was not like that. It started small. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Sarah always smelled like vanilla body lotion. She had used the same kind since before we got married. It was one of those little things that belonged to her. If she walked past me, I smelled vanilla. If she had been lying on the couch, the cushion smelled like vanilla. Even her scarves and coats carried that soft, warm scent. About a week after I came home from hospital, she walked past me in the hallway, and I smelled something else. It was cold. That is the only way I can explain it. It smelled like wet earth, like rainwater sitting in a dark basement, like an old cellar door being opened after years. There was something damp and buried about it. I almost asked her about it, but I stopped myself. It felt too strange to say out loud. What was I supposed to ask? Why do you smell like dirt? So I said nothing. I told myself maybe she had been outside. Maybe she had been in the garden. Maybe her coat was damp. Maybe it was something from work. But it kept happening. Not all the time. That was the worst part. Sometimes she still smelled like Sarah, warm and sweet and familiar. Then suddenly, if she came too close, that cold smell would slide into the room. Wet soil, old stone, something hidden underground. The second thing was the way she slept. I had slept next to Sarah for 6 years. You learn things about a person when you share a bed with them that long. You learn the way they breathe when they are in a deep sleep. You learn how they move, how they turn over, what sounds they make when they dream. Sarah always slept curled on her left side, facing away from me, with one hand tucked under her pillow. Always, every night. Sometimes Biscuit would sleep behind her knees, and she would complain in the morning that he had trapped her in one position. About 10 days after the accident, I woke up at 2 in the morning. I do not know what woke me. There was no sound, no storm, no car outside. The room was dark, except for a thin line of streetlight coming through the curtains. I turned my head and looked at Sarah. She was lying flat on her back, completely straight. Her arms were down at her sides, her legs were together, her eyes were closed. She was not snoring. She was not shifting. She did not even look comfortable. She looked like someone had placed her there. She looked like a body laid out in a coffin. I stared at her for a long time. My heart started beating faster, but I told myself I was being stupid. People sleep in strange positions sometimes. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she had a sore back. Maybe I was still shaken from the accident. I rolled over and closed my eyes. The next night I woke up at 2 again. Same thing. Sarah was flat on her back, arms straight down, face still, body still. This time I leaned closer. I could not hear her breathing. For one terrible second, I thought she was dead. I put my hand near her mouth. She was breathing, but only just. Tiny, shallow breaths, barely enough to move the air. I did not sleep for the rest of that night. I know how this sounds. I know what people will say. They will say I had a concussion. They will say I was scared after the crash. They will say trauma makes the mind strange. They will say grief and fear can twist normal things into monsters. But I was not going crazy. I had no history of mental illness. The doctors checked me before I left hospital. They told me the concussion was healing fine. I was thinking clearly. I was working again. I could remember numbers, dates, passwords. I was not seeing things that were not there. I know what I saw. The third thing was the photographs. Sarah loved photos. She always had. Our house was full of them. Framed pictures on shelves, on walls, on the fireplace, beside the stairs. Our wedding. Holidays, dinners, walks in the park. Random afternoons that Sarah had decided were worth remembering. I used to tease her about it. I would say we had more photos than a museum. She would laugh and tell me that memories deserved a place to live. One evening, I was dusting the shelves in the living room. Sarah was in the kitchen, or at least I thought she was. I remember hearing plates moving softly. I was moving slowly because my ribs still hurt when I stretched too far. I stopped in front of our wedding photo. It was the big one above the fireplace, the two of us standing outside the church. I was wearing a gray suit. Sarah was in her white dress, laughing at something someone had said. Her hand was near her mouth, and my arm was around her shoulder. It was one of my favorite pictures of us. I looked at it for a while. Then something inside me went cold. At first, I could not understand what was wrong. The photo was familiar. I had seen it every day for years. But there was something in it that made my stomach tighten. Then I saw it. The shadows. My shadow stretched behind me, away from the sun. That was normal. That was how shadows worked. But Sarah's shadow was wrong. Her shadow was pointing toward the sun, toward the light. I stood there, holding the duster, unable to move. Shadows do not do that. They cannot do that. There is no angle, no camera trick, no simple mistake that makes a shadow lean toward the light that is making it. I took the photo off the wall and carried it into the kitchen. I stood under the bright ceiling light and stared at it. I turned it left and right. I told myself it was a printing problem. I told myself maybe there were two light sources. I told myself anything I could think of, but none of it made sense. Sarah came into the kitchen behind me. "What are you looking at?" she asked. I jumped so badly that the frame almost slipped from my hands. She smiled at me, that same soft smile. Her eyes moved from my face to the photo. "Our wedding picture," she said. I love that one. Her voice was normal, warm, gentle. I swallowed and forced myself to smile. Yeah, me too. I put the photo back above the fireplace. After that, I stopped looking at it directly, but I could feel it in the room. I know that sounds strange, but it is true. When I sat on the couch, I could feel that photo behind me. I could feel the wrongness of it, like a whisper in the corner of my eye. That was when I started watching Sarah more carefully. Not in an obsessive way at first, not like someone spying on their wife. I just paid attention. And once I started paying attention, I noticed more. Sarah barely ate. Before the accident, she loved food. She loved pizza. She loved pasta. She loved late-night cereal. On bad days, she could finish most of a large pizza by herself and then look at me like I was judging her if I laughed. She used to snack while watching TV. She used to steal chips from my plate. Now she only moved food around. At dinner, she would cut things into small pieces. She would lift the fork sometimes, but if I looked away and then looked back, the food was still there. She drank water, but I never really saw her swallow, not once. It was like she was copying the idea of eating without actually doing it. She also stopped going to bed before me. That might not sound important, but it was. Sarah used to fall asleep early. By 10 at night, she was usually half asleep on the couch, with biscuit pressed against her side. I would wake her and guide her upstairs, and she would mumble at me the whole way. Now she stayed awake. Every night she sat in the chair in the corner of our bedroom while I brushed my teeth, checked my phone, and got into bed. She just waited there in the dim light, hands resting on her lap. Only after I lay down would she stand up and get into bed beside me. Then, at 2 in the morning, I would wake and find her flat on her back again. Still, quiet, almost not breathing. Her phone was another thing. Sarah used to be on her phone all the time. She texted her sister Mira constantly. She watched cooking videos. She sent me pictures of dogs she wanted to adopt. She joined school group chats and then complained about how many messages they sent. One afternoon, while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone. I know I should not have done it. I know it was wrong. But by then, fear had started living inside me. There were no new messages, no call history, no app usage, no photos from the last few weeks. It was like the phone had not been touched since before the accident. But I had seen her holding it. I had seen the screen light up in her hand. I put it back exactly where I found it. That evening I waited until Sarah was downstairs. Then I went into my office and called Mira from my work phone. She answered after a few rings. "Hello?" "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "It's me." "Oh, hi." Her voice was careful. Too careful. "How are you?" I asked. "Have you talked to Sarah lately?" There was a pause. Not a normal pause, not the kind where someone is thinking. This was the kind of pause where a person suddenly becomes afraid of what they are about to hear. "What do you mean?" Mira asked slowly. "I just mean recently," I said. "Like this week." Another pause, longer this time. Then Mira said, "Are you okay?" Her voice had changed. It sounded tight, like she was trying not to cry. "I'm fine," I said. "Why?" "Sarah hasn't." She stopped. I waited, holding the phone so tightly my fingers hurt. "Can you come over?" Mira asked. "Can you come here right now?" Something inside me dropped. "Why?" "Please," she whispered. "Just come. Don't tell her where you're going." I stood in my office for a full minute after the call ended. Then I went downstairs. Sarah was sitting on the couch. The television was on, but she was not watching it. Biscuit was nowhere to be seen. That had become normal too. He had started hiding after I came back from hospital. At first, I thought the accident had upset him somehow, or maybe the change in routine. But he was always under the bed now. Always. He only came out when Sarah was not in the room. "I'm going to the pharmacy," I said. Sarah turned her head and smiled at me. That smile. It looked exactly like hers. That was the worst part. Not almost, not close. "Exactly, don't be long," she said. I drove to Mira's house with both hands gripping the wheel. Every red light felt too long. Every sound made me jump. Rain had started again, light this time, tapping against the windscreen. Mira opened the door before I even knocked. Her eyes were red. Her face looked pale and tired. She looked like she had not slept for days. She did not hug me. She did not say hello. She just stepped back and let me inside. We sat at her kitchen table. The house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Mira put both hands flat on the table, like she needed to hold herself still. "Sarah has been calling me," she said. I stared at her. "What?" "She has been calling me every day," Mira said. "Sometimes twice a day." I did not understand. "Okay, from her phone?" Mira shook her head slowly. "No, from a number I do not know. A different number every time, I think. Sometimes it says unknown. Sometimes it is just a string of numbers I have never seen before." My throat felt dry. "What does she say?" Mira looked down at the table. Tears gathered in her eyes. "She says the same thing every time." I wanted to tell her to stop. I wanted to get up and leave before she said it. Because somehow, before she even spoke, part of me already knew. But I asked anyway. "What does she say?" Mira covered her mouth for a second. When she spoke again, her voice was barely louder than a whisper. She says, "He survived the accident, but I didn't. Please tell him I love him. Please tell him to look at who came home." The room seemed to tilt. For a moment I could not breathe. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to tell her that was impossible. I wanted to get angry and accuse her of some sick joke. But Mira was crying too hard for it to be a joke. And deep down, I knew. I had known for days. Maybe since the first time I smelled wet earth in my hallway. Maybe since the first time I woke at 2 in the morning and saw my wife lying like a corpse beside me. I drove home in a state I cannot fully describe. It was not panic exactly. Panic is loud. Panic makes you move fast. This was something colder. I felt empty, like my body was driving by itself and my mind had stepped far away. When I reached the house, I sat in the car for several minutes. The lights were on inside. Our house looked the same as always. Same front door, same curtains, same little plant pot Sarah had bought and then forgotten to water. Anyone walking past would have seen a normal house, with a normal couple living inside. But I knew there was something in there wearing my wife's face. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The living room was warm. The television was still on. The woman on the couch looked up at me. "You're back," she said. I stood in the hallway, unable to move. She looked like Sarah. Every detail was right. The brown eyes, the soft mouth, the small scar near her eyebrow from when she fell as a child, the little line that appeared between her brows when she was confused. I had kissed that face 1,000 times. I had loved that face for years. But it was not her. "Who are you?" I whispered. She tilted her head slightly. It was such a small movement, but it made my skin crawl. It was like watching an animal pretend to understand a human question. Then she smiled, not Sarah's small, warm smile. This one was wider, too wide. "I'm your wife," she said softly. Before I could answer, a terrible sound came from upstairs. It was Biscuit. He was screaming, not meowing, not crying for food. Screaming, the sound came from under the bed, long and raw and full of fear. He had been hiding there for 3 weeks. Biscuit had never hidden from Sarah, not once in 6 years. He used to follow her from room to room. He used to sleep on her clothes. He used to wait by the door when she came home from work. Now he screamed every time she went near him. I backed toward the front door. The thing on the couch watched me. It did not stand. It did not chase me. It only sat there, smiling. "Where are you going?" it asked. I did not answer. I ran. I am writing this from Mira's house now. I have not gone back. The thing in my house still calls me. Every night at 2 in the morning, my phone rings. The caller ID says Sarah. I never answer. Mira told me not to. She said the calls from the strange numbers have stopped since I left the house. Now they only come to me. Always at 2. Always once. The phone rings until it goes to voicemail, and then it stops. For the first few nights, there were no messages. Then last night, it left one. I did not play it right away. I sat on the edge of the bed in Mira's spare room, staring at the screen while my hands shook. The room was dark. Mira was asleep down the hall. Outside, a car passed slowly, its headlights sliding across the wall. I knew I should delete it, but I also knew I had to hear it. This morning after sunrise, I played the voicemail. It was Sarah's voice, not the thing's voice, not the calm voice from my living room, not the perfect copy that looked at me and said it was my wife. It was my real Sarah. She was crying. There was static behind her, and something else too. A low sound, like wind moving through a tunnel. When she spoke, her voice sounded far away, like she was calling from the bottom of a deep place. She said only 4 words, "Don't let it stay." Then the message ended. I have played it 6 times. I do not know why. Maybe I keep hoping there will be more. Maybe I keep hoping I will hear something in the background that tells me where she is. Maybe I just want to hear her voice again, even if it destroys me every time. I do not know what came home with me after the accident. I do not know if it followed me from the road, or if it crawled into my life while I was unconscious in that hospital bed. I do not know if Sarah died that night, and something took her place before anyone could notice. I do not know if the woman who sat beside me in the hospital was my real wife, or the thing wearing her skin. That question keeps me awake more than anything. Was Sarah there with me in the hospital? Did she hold my hand? Did she tell me I was okay? Or was it already pretending by then? I keep thinking about the accident. The white flash, the sound like the world breaking open. I keep wondering what really happened in those missing minutes. The doctors told me a truck hit me. They told me I was lucky to be alive. But nobody told me what happened to Sarah. Because Sarah was not in the car. She was supposed to be at home that night. So how did she die in the accident? And if she did not die there, where did she die? I have called the police once. I hung up before anyone answered. What am I supposed to say? There is something in my house pretending to be my dead wife? My cat is terrified of it? My sister-in-law gets phone calls from a woman who says she is dead? They will think I am sick. They will tell me to see a doctor. Maybe they will force me to go back to the hospital. And while they waste time trying to explain it away, that thing will stay in my house. sleeping in my bed, walking through my rooms, touching Sarah's clothes, feeding my cat, who screams every time it comes close. Sometimes I wonder if it wants me to come back. Maybe that is why it calls every night. Maybe it cannot leave the house unless I invite it. Maybe it needs me to believe it is Sarah. Maybe it needs me to stop being afraid. But I am afraid. I am more afraid than I have ever been in my life. If anyone reading this has ever experienced anything like it, please tell me what to do. Tell me how to make it leave. Tell me how to help Sarah, if there is still any part of her left to help. I do not know how much time I have before it does something worse. I will try to update when I can. Please stay safe. Hug the people you love. Pay attention to the small things, the smell that does not belong, the shadow that falls the wrong way, the person who smiles like someone you know, but not quite like someone you love. And if something feels wrong, even if it is tiny, even if you cannot explain it, trust that feeling. Trust it before it is too late. Story 3. Hey, Chris here. I never thought I would come to the internet for something like this, but I do not know where else to go. I know this is going to sound insane. I know most of you will think I am making it up, or that I am crazy, or that I need sleep, or a doctor, or both. But I am telling you the truth. I think my grandmother is about to be killed. I do not even know if killed is the right word. Maybe I should say she is going to die. Maybe that sounds less terrible. But it does not feel less terrible. It feels like the same thing either way. Someone is about to be taken from us, and everyone around me is acting like it is normal. I should explain. I have to explain everything from the beginning, because if I just say it plainly, no one will believe me. Where I live, whenever someone is born, someone else has to die. That is not a saying. It is not some old family belief. It is not a superstition people whisper about to scare children. It is real. It is how this place works. A life comes in, and another life goes out. And it is not only birth. If someone from outside ever comes inside the borders of our town, then someone already living here will die. It always happens. No matter who it is, no matter how careful people are, no matter how much they try to deny it, if a new person enters, someone else is removed. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds impossible. But I have lived here my whole life, and I have seen enough to know it is true. My life is basically proof. Everyone's life here is proof. There is a reason our town is so far away from everything. There is a reason outsiders are not allowed in. There is a reason we have so many rules that it feels less like a town and more like a prison. And there is a reason I am scared even while writing this, because telling anyone outside about this place is strictly forbidden by law here. But I do not care anymore. I love my grandma, and I want to save her. I want to help her somehow. I want to find one rule, one crack, one loophole, one little mistake in the system that might keep her alive. The reason I am worried about her is simple. My mother is pregnant. I am going to have a baby sister. And if you understand what I have said so far, then you probably understand what that means. Someone in my family is going to die. Maybe you think that sounds simple. A baby is born, an older person dies. But it is not simple. Nothing about this town is simple. So I need to explain how things work in this hellhole I call home. Outsiders are forbidden to come in. We do not have tourists. We do not have visitors. So please do not try to find this place. Do not start digging. Do not go looking. Do not come here because you think this is some weird internet mystery you can solve. We do not want outsiders. I do not want outsiders. I do not want to be responsible for what happens if someone crosses the line. Even the people who bring our food and supplies do not come inside. They stop far away from the border. Everything is sent in through these long mechanical tunnels. They are old and loud and strange, but they work. Food, medicine, packages, tools, all of it comes through that way. No one crosses in. No one crosses out. There are rules for animals, too. Having animals is not exactly forbidden, but it is strongly discouraged. Every animal has to be neutered. Every single one. It does not matter if it is a parakeet, a cat, a dog, or something bigger. If it can breed, people do not want it here. Humans are the only exception, and even with humans, having children is controlled more than most people outside could imagine. I live with my mom, my dad, and my grandma. It used to be me, my parents, my grandma, and our bird. Used to be. That part is important, because what happened to that bird was my fault. I was a stupid kid, and I did not understand how serious the rules were. I had heard them my whole life, but hearing rules and really understanding them are not the same thing. When I was younger, I found a stray dog outside the town border. He was thin and dirty and looked hungry. I had some cheese with me, so I threw him a piece. Of course, he started following me. I was lonely, and he seemed friendly, and I thought I had found a new friend. I did not think about the rules. I did not think about the border. I did not think about what would happen if I brought something new into town. I just walked home with that dog following behind me. When I got inside the house, our bird was lying on the floor. Dead. I do not need to explain much more than that. I was young and naive, but that does not make it better. My parents were furious. I had never been punished that badly in my life. They screamed at me until their voices broke. My mother cried. My father looked like he wanted to drag me back to the border and throw me over it himself. At first I thought they were angry because I had killed the bird, but later I understood. I had not only killed the bird, I had almost killed someone in my family. That is how it works here. The rules are more like guidelines, because there is no way to fully control this thing. Each family has to protect itself. When someone is born, the person who dies is usually from that same family. When I was born, my grandmother on my dad's side died. When someone new comes into town from outside, it is more random. Anyone can be taken. Animals are strange. They are not the same as people. Sometimes they replace other animals. Sometimes they replace someone else. No one really understands the pattern. That is why animals are allowed only with caution, and why most families avoid them completely. And before anyone asks, I do not know how it works with bugs, worms, flies, or anything like that. Nobody has ever been able to explain that to me. Maybe small things do not count. Maybe they do. Maybe the town has its own idea of what a life is. We still have the dog. I guess we have to. After what happened with the bird, my parents did not want to risk another exchange. Getting rid of the dog might have caused something else. Killing him might have caused something worse. So he stayed. He is old now. He sleeps most of the day, and every time I look at him, I remember that bird on the floor. So when I say this is not some weird little town legend, I mean it. This is life and death for us. It is not a story people tell for fun. It is not something we laugh about. It controls every part of our lives. That is why I am scared. I know what is going to happen when my sister is born, and I am not scared for myself. I know my grandma is next. The older you are in a family, the more likely you are to be chosen. It is not always guaranteed, but it is close. If it were completely random every time, this town would have fallen apart a long time ago. Families would panic, parents would refuse to have children, people would turn on each other more than they already do, so the town seems to take the oldest first, most of the time. My grandmother knows it too. Everyone knows it. That is also why I cannot just leave town. Some people online might say, just run away, as if no one here has ever thought of that. But leaving is basically saying goodbye forever. Everyone who leaves is replaced. That is the rule. If I left, someone else would end up here somehow, and I would be gone from my family's life for good. I thought about leaving to take my grandma's place. I really did. I thought maybe if I crossed the border before my sister was born, maybe the town would take me instead, but it does not work that cleanly. I might disappear, or die, or be replaced by some stranger, and my grandma might still die when the baby is born. Then my family would lose both of us. I love my parents. I do not want to leave them. I do not want to take their son away from them. I do not want my baby sister to grow up in my place like I was just a name erased from the family. But I do not want my grandma to die either. That is why I am asking for help. I know most of you will not believe me. Maybe none of you will. So let me give you more proof. Let me tell you about the things I have seen. I already told you that when I was born, my grandmother on my dad's side died. My family was upset, of course, but it was expected. That is the awful thing about this town. Death is expected. People cry, but they also nod like they always knew it was coming. My grandfather did not take it that way. He hated me. He never forgave me for being born, because in his mind, I was the reason his wife died. He was cruel to me for as long as I can remember. He would tease me, threaten me, and say horrible things in that rough old voice of his. He used to tell me that one day he would have another child, and then I would be the one who died. Once, when I was little, he took me close to the town border. I still remember how cold his hand felt around the back of my shirt. He kept pushing me toward the line, just enough to scare me, not enough to actually throw me over. "What are you scared of?" he yelled. "Scared you're going to fall?" He laughed while I cried. I hated that man. I know it is wrong to say, but the day he died I felt relief. And before you ask, he died of old age. We are not immortal here. People still get sick. People still age. Accidents still happen. My grandfather was 95 years old and smoked every day of his life. There was nothing supernatural about that death. But there are other deaths that are harder to explain. Years ago, when I was still a kid, a man died in town when a steel girder fell and hit him in the head. I saw it happen. I wish I had not. I can still see it when I close my eyes. I can still hear the sound it made. It did not sound like what you think a person dying would sound like. It sounded heavy and wet and final. The girder struck him so hard that it tore away part of his face. His lower jaw was gone. He dropped where he stood and never moved again. I remember falling down after seeing it. My legs just stopped working. Adults were nearby, but no one comforted me. No one covered my eyes. No one screamed the way people outside would scream. Everyone just stared. Then a little girl rode past me on a red bicycle. She could not have been older than 5. She had this tiny high voice, and she looked at me like I was being silly for being scared. She rode right by the dead man, right by all the adults, and then she looked down at me. "What are you scared of?" she said. "Scared another one is going to fall on you?" Then she rode away. I never forgot that. Not the dead man, not the blood, not her voice. I hated that kid for years. The man who died had his own story. Everyone in town knew it, even if they did not say it out loud around children. He had cheated on his wife. The child born that day was apparently his, but not with his wife. The day that baby came into the world was the day the girder took his head apart. And the worst part was not even the death. The worst part was how people reacted. No one seemed shocked. No one seemed sad. The feeling in the air was almost like satisfaction, like everyone was thinking the same thing. You deserved it. That is how people are here. Brutal, cold. Maybe the town makes them that way. Maybe living with rules like this turns everyone into something hard. You cannot just have children here. Not outside marriage, not without approval, not without planning. Our version of Planned Parenthood is exactly that. Planned. Every birth matters. Every birth costs something. So people do not get to be careless. But people are people, and they still do terrible things. There is another story I remember from when I was younger. There was a man who did something to his daughter. I am not going to describe it. I do not want to write it out, and I do not want this post taken down. Just understand that it was the kind of crime that makes people stop seeing you as human. When the town found out, they hanged him. I did not take part. I was just a kid, but I remember the silence afterward. It was not like a normal execution, if there is such a thing. It felt like the whole town had been holding its breath and finally breathed out at once. This place is old. People say it is sacred. I do not know if that is true, but there is something different about it. My mother used to say that hurting someone in town is worse than hurting one person. She said, if you harm one person here, you harm everyone. I never fully understood what she meant. Maybe she meant that this town is connected in some way. Maybe every life here is tied together. Maybe the rules are not just rules, but some kind of balance. I do not like thinking about it too much. I try to hold on to whatever sanity I still have, but the hanging was not the strange part of that story. Years later, some older kids told me what happened after the man died. They said that when he was hanged, a stray dog walked into town. That would normally mean someone else should have died, or maybe something else had to be balanced. But the people were still full of rage. They took the dog and killed it too. I hate violence toward animals. I hated hearing it. But the older kids said the adults acted like they knew something was wrong with that dog. Like it was not only a dog, like something had come in wearing the shape of one. After the dog died, a cat came into town. They killed that too. Then a possum came, then a rat, then a mouse, then a bird, and that is where the older kids stopped talking. I do not know if more came after that. I do not know if they were scared to tell me the rest, or if that was really the end. They did tell me one more thing, though. After all those animals were killed, the townspeople gathered together and ate them, all of them. Cooked, of course, as if that makes it less disturbing. I have no interest in eating a cooked rat, but that is not really the point. The point is that something happened that day that nobody likes to talk about. Some people say the town used to have 1,000 people before that. Others say there is someone locked in the basement of the mayor's office, still serving a punishment connected to that day. I do not know what is true. Even after I became an adult, no one would tell me. It is one of those town secrets everyone knows exists, but no one says out loud. Still, I think you understand now. This place is not normal. It has rules, and when those rules are broken, the punishment is never small. There was also a car crash a few years ago. It was one of the worst things that had happened in a long time. The official report said 10 people died. Around here, 10 deaths at once is not just a tragedy. It shakes everything. People counted names. Families locked their doors. Everyone waited to see what the town would do to balance it. I was told that on the same day, a woman gave birth to quintuplets, 5 babies. The mother died right after. Then 4 people wandered into town from the woods. They said they had been lost for weeks. They were dirty, starving, half out of their minds. The town took them in. They became residents. One of them is actually a nice lady who now bakes the best pecan pies I have ever tasted. So if you are counting, you might think the numbers do not add up. 10 people died. 5 babies were born, the mother died, and 4 strangers came in. That does not make perfect sense, right? That is because the official report was not true. 10 people did not die. 8 died. 2 survived. At least, people say they survived. I have seen them only a few times. I wish I had not. Their bodies are still here, but I do not know if I would call it living. Their faces are wrong. Their limbs are wrong. Their skin looks stretched in places it should not stretch. They do not speak. Not really. They breathe. They blink. They exist. It feels like the town refused to let them die because the number had to stay balanced. I do not want to talk about them anymore. So now you understand what is at stake. If someone dies, someone must take their place. If someone is born, someone must die. If someone comes in, someone goes out. There is always a trade. Always. And now my mother is about to have a baby. I was writing all of this when my mom started yelling for me from downstairs. Her voice sounded strange, not scared exactly, but sharp. Urgent. I ran down, and she was holding the side of the kitchen counter, breathing hard. My dad was already grabbing her hospital bag. Her water had broken. I thought we had more time. I thought I had at least another month to figure something out. I thought I could ask people online, and maybe, somehow, someone would come up with an idea none of us had thought of before. But I was wrong. The baby was coming early. We went to the hospital. Our hospital is small, like everything else here. It is not the kind of place you see in big cities. The halls are old, the lights flicker when it rains, and everybody knows everybody. There are no strangers in the waiting room. No one looks confused. No one asks questions they should not ask. When a pregnant woman comes in, people look at the family first. They look for the oldest. They looked at my grandma. She came with us, even though we all knew what that meant. She wore her blue cardigan, the one she wears almost every day, and she had her little black purse on her lap. She looked calm, too calm, like she had already packed her fear away somewhere I could not reach. I sat beside her for a long time. My dad kept pacing. My mother was taken into a room. Nurses came and went. Every time the doors opened, my heart jumped. I talked to my grandma more in those few days than I had in months. She told me not to be angry. She told me this was how things were. She said she had lived a long life, longer than many people here get. She said my sister deserved to be born without guilt hanging over her. I told her that was not fair. She smiled and touched my hand. Fair does not matter here, Chris, she said. You know that. I hated hearing it because she was right. Fairness has never mattered in this town. Balance matters. Numbers matter. Rules matter. But fairness? No. Fairness is something people outside get to believe in. My mother did not know the baby's gender for sure. She thought it was a girl. She always said she could feel it. My mom is more traditional than most people. She did not get many ultrasounds. She said the baby should develop naturally, without people bothering it too much. That might sound irresponsible outside this town, but here people think differently. Babies here are usually fine. The town does not seem to like wasted births. That is a horrible sentence to write, but it is true. I kept waiting for something to happen to my grandma. A pain in her chest, a fall, a sudden silence. Anything. But she just sat there, calm and tired, like someone waiting for a train she had already bought a ticket for. I had tried everything I could think of. I asked people online. I thought about running. I thought about bringing something else in, but the idea terrified me. What if I made it worse? What if I caused more deaths? What if the town punished my whole family because I tried to cheat it? There was no time, no plan, no loophole, just waiting. My dad came out once and said my mom was doing okay. The baby was coming sooner than expected, but the doctor seemed confident. He tried to smile when he said it. It looked painful on his face. I knew he was thinking about his mother. We all were. Grandma squeezed my hand and told me to breathe. Imagine that. She was the one about to die, and she was comforting me. Hours passed, maybe more. Time felt strange in that hospital. Every sound was too loud. Shoes squeaked on the floor. Someone coughed down the hall. A nurse whispered to another nurse and glanced at us. I wanted to scream at them all, to stop looking at my grandma like she was already gone. Then the delivery room door opened. The doctor stepped out. He looked shocked. That was the first thing I noticed. Not sad, not calm, not the careful, respectful face doctors use when they are about to tell you someone died. Shocked, pale, almost frightened. And he was looking at me. Not my dad, not my grandma. Me. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might pass out. I stood up, and my legs felt weak. My dad asked what happened, but the doctor did not answer right away. He kept staring at me like he had seen something impossible. I walked toward him. My mouth was dry. "What is it?" I asked. He pulled me aside, just a few steps away from the others, but not far enough. His voice was low and unsteady. "Your mother is alive," he said. For 1 second, relief hit me so hard I almost cried. Then I noticed he was still looking scared. "The baby?" I asked. He swallowed. "The babies," he said. I stared at him. He told me my mother had given birth to triplets. 3 babies, not 1. 3? I did not understand at first. My brain could not hold the thought. Triplets, 3 new lives, 3 people coming into the family at once. And then I understood. 1 birth would have meant 1 death. 3 births meant 3 deaths. My grandmother was not the only one in danger. I turned back toward the waiting area. My grandma was still sitting there in her blue cardigan, holding her purse in her lap. My dad was standing beside her, and they were both staring at me. The doctor kept talking, but I could not hear him anymore. The hallway seemed to stretch. The lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere behind the doors, 3 newborn babies were crying. 3, I had spent all this time trying to save my grandmother, but I had never thought to ask what would happen if my mother had more than one child. I looked at my grandma. Then I looked at my dad. Then, slowly, I realized who the third death might be, and that was when the dog started howling at home. Story 4. When I came home, my wife's car was sitting in the driveway, but I could not see her anywhere. At first, that did not seem strange enough to scare me. Not right away. There were normal reasons for it. Maybe she had gone for a short walk with our son and left the car behind. Maybe she was in the backyard. Maybe she was in the bathroom and could not hear me. Maybe the baby was asleep and she was moving quietly around the house, trying not to wake him. I told myself all of that before I even opened the front door. But when I stepped inside, the house felt wrong. It was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Not the soft kind of quiet you feel when a baby is finally asleep and everyone is afraid to breathe too loudly. This was a heavy quiet, the kind that presses against your ears and makes you aware of every small sound your body makes. The stroller was folded beside the front door. Her shoes were near the mat. The diaper bag was still hanging from the hook by the closet. The living room light was off, even though she always turned it on before sunset. The baby monitor was on the table, but the screen was black. It was off. The door to our son's room was closed. I called my wife's name. No answer. I called again, louder this time. I tried to sound calm. I tried to sound like a normal husband coming home from work and wondering where his family was. Still nothing. I walked down the hallway and stopped outside the nursery. My hand reached for the doorknob, but it did not turn it. My fingers just rested there, cold and stiff. I could have opened the door. That was all I had to do. Open it and look inside. If the crib was empty, then maybe she had gone out with him. If she was sitting in the rocking chair, tired and angry and crying, then I could help her. If something was wrong, I could do something. But I did not open it. I stood there staring at the door, telling myself it was still possible they were not home. It was possible. It had to be possible. People went out without taking the stroller sometimes. People left baby monitors off sometimes. People forgot their phones, forgot lights, forgot small things when they were tired. I kept repeating those thoughts in my head, one after another, like prayers I did not believe in. Looking back now, I can see so many moments where I should have done more. So many times I should have stepped in instead of standing to the side and waiting for things to fix themselves. She was always the one who got up with the baby at night. Always. I told myself it was because she was a lighter sleeper. I told myself she heard him first. I told myself she did not mind as much as I would have. Every morning I woke up after 8 full hours of sleep and felt confused by it. I would stretch, look over at her and say something stupid like, "Did he sleep through the night?" And she would just smile a little with dark circles under her eyes and say, "I was up anyway." At first, I thought she meant she had trouble sleeping because she was a new mother. People talk about that all the time. New mothers are nervous. New mothers check if the baby is breathing. New mothers cry for no clear reason. New mothers get tired and scared and emotional. That was normal, right? That was what I told myself. She said she could not sleep because there was too much happening in the world. She said every time she closed her eyes, she saw all the terrible things people did to children. She saw news stories she had read years ago. She saw strangers in parking lots. She saw men standing too close to strollers. She saw people looking through windows. She saw danger everywhere. She said there were people outside who would hurt our son if they ever got the chance. I tried to comfort her. I told her we lived in a safe place. I told her our doors had good locks. I told her our neighborhood was quiet. I told her nothing was going to happen to him. But I did not really listen, not the way I should have, because deep down, I thought she was just anxious. I thought all new mothers were like that in some way. I thought time would help. I thought sleep would help. I thought she would slowly become herself again. The 9mm memory was in the gun safe in our bedroom. We did not keep it loaded. I want that to be clear. I was careful about that. I was not stupid. At least, I did not think I was. The gun safe was on the top shelf of the closet. It had a lock. The lid was always closed. The ammunition was kept separate. We had talked about safety before the baby was born. We had agreed on everything. When I came home that evening, the bedroom door was open. From where I stood in the hallway, I could see the closet door. I could see the safe sitting up there, closed and locked, exactly where it should have been. I could have gone in and checked. I could have opened it and made sure the gun was still inside, but I did not. I looked at the safe for a few seconds, then looked away. I told myself there was no reason to check. If I checked, it meant I believed something terrible might have happened. If I did not check, then maybe everything was still normal. That was how my mind worked in that moment, like a child hiding under a blanket and thinking the dark could not reach him if he did not look. The lack of sleep had been wearing her down for weeks, maybe months. I did not notice how bad it had become until it was already bad enough to frighten me. More and more often, I came home and found her crying. Sometimes she was sitting on the floor in the nursery, holding our son against her chest so tightly that I worried she might hurt him by accident. Sometimes she was in the kitchen with one hand over her mouth, trying to keep quiet while tears ran down her face. Sometimes she was standing in the living room, looking out the window like she expected someone to be standing on the sidewalk watching us. When I asked what was wrong, she could never give me a real answer. Not a clear one. She would say, "I can't protect him." And I would say, "Yes, you can." She would say, "No, I can't. I can't be awake all the time." And I would say, "You don't have to be." She would whisper, "You don't understand. You don't see it." And maybe she was right. I did not understand. I did not see it. I did not see her falling apart right in front of me. I told her again and again that we were safe. I told her this was a good neighborhood. I told her nothing bad happened on streets like ours. Maybe I really am an idiot. Standing outside the nursery door, I tried to think of any reason why she might not be there. Maybe she had walked to a neighbor's house. We had not met any of our neighbors yet, but that did not mean she could not have met one while I was at work. Maybe an older woman from next door had introduced herself. Maybe she had seen my wife struggling and invited her in for tea. Maybe there was some kind grandmother nearby who loved babies and wanted company. The realtor had told us that most of the houses on our block were still lived in by the original owners. Older people. People who had bought the homes decades ago and stayed. He said that, little by little, as those people moved into retirement communities, more young families like ours would move in. Maybe one of those older women had seen my wife outside and said hello. Maybe she had become a friend. Maybe she was the kind of woman my wife needed. Her own mother was not in her life anymore. They had stopped speaking before our wedding. My wife never liked talking about it, and I never pushed. I knew enough to know her mother had hurt her in ways that did not leave bruises. I knew my wife carried that empty space around with her, even when she pretended not to. So maybe someone had stepped into that space. Maybe there was a gentle old woman across the street who had invited her and the baby over. Maybe they were sitting in a warm living room right now, my wife finally resting while someone else held our son. That could happen. I tried to believe it. I had told her we should hire a nanny. I thought that proved I was trying. I thought suggesting help was the same thing as giving help. We interviewed 3 women. All of them seemed fine to me. One had years of experience. One had worked in a daycare. One had raised 4 children of her own. My wife rejected every single one. The first one smiled too much. The second one did not wash her hands quickly enough after touching her phone. The third one looked at our son in a way my wife did not like. I argued at first. Then I stopped, because every argument ended with her crying and me feeling like a monster. She did not trust any of them. After a while, I started to realize she did not trust anyone, maybe not even me. I tried to get her out of the house. I told her we could have a date night, just dinner, just 1 hour. She looked at me like I had suggested leaving our baby in the middle of the road. Then I told her to call a friend. I said I would stay home with our son. She could go have coffee or take a walk or just sit somewhere quiet and breathe. She still said no. She said, "You might fall asleep." I laughed because I thought she was joking. She was not joking. I called her cell phone from the hallway. It went straight to voicemail. That should have scared me more, but it did not. Not completely. She was never attached to her phone the way most people were. When we were dating, she used to turn it off for hours. Sometimes she left it at home on purpose when we went out. I loved that about her. I loved sitting across from someone who actually looked at me. Someone who did not check every buzz, every message, every stupid notification. I used to think she was rare because of that. I used to imagine her as a mother, fully present, watching our child take his first steps with her whole heart in the room. Not filming it for people online. Not missing the moment because she was busy sending a text. We had talked about how things needed to change after the baby was born. I told her she needed to be reachable. I told her she could not just disappear from her phone anymore. She agreed. But old habits are old habits. Her phone being off did not have to mean anything. It could mean she forgot to charge it. It could mean the baby finally fell asleep and she turned it off so nothing would wake him. It could mean she needed silence. It meant nothing. That was what I told myself. There were things I should not have ignored. I know that now. At the time, though, everything felt confusing. It did not feel like a slow disaster. It felt like one day she was tired and worried, and the next day she was screaming at me in the kitchen with our son crying in her arms. I remember that morning clearly. She asked me if I had checked the locks before bed. I said yes. She asked if I checked the windows. I said I thought so. She asked what I meant by thought so. I told her I did check them. Then she asked why I had hesitated. I said I was tired. She started crying first. Then she started yelling. She said I did not care if someone came in. She said I slept like a dead man while she stayed awake protecting our son. She said I wanted her to go crazy so I could take the baby away from her. I was shocked. I did not know what to say. I told her she was being unfair. That made it worse. Finally, I told myself the best thing I could do was give her space. Clearly, my being there was making her more upset. Clearly, if I stayed, we would only keep fighting. So I kissed our son on the head, grabbed my keys, and went to work. I left her there. My hand was still frozen on the nursery doorknob when the memory changed. For some reason, my mind went back to high school, not to anything useful, not to any lesson about danger or courage or family. My brain chose the stupidest memory it could find. I remembered walking out of physics class with my friends, laughing so hard we could barely breathe. Our teacher was a short, angry German man who was terrible at explaining even simple things. That day, he had tried to explain Schrödinger's cat. He said the cat was alive and dead at the same time until someone opened the box and looked inside. We thought that was the funniest thing in the world. We mocked his accent. We repeated his words in cruel voices. It is alive and dead, both, until you open the container. We laughed and asked if the left half of the cat was dead and the right half was alive. Someone asked if we could keep the front half alive and the back half dead so nobody would have to clean the litter box. Our teacher's face turned red. Spit flew from his mouth as he shouted at us, "Only until you open the container. Then it is either alive or dead." At the time, that made us laugh even harder. Standing in my hallway, with my son's door closed in front of me, I finally understood him. As long as I did not open the door, there were still two worlds. In one world, my wife and son were not inside. They were safe somewhere else. In one world, the room was empty. In one world, I had been a worried fool, and I could laugh about it later, and she could be angry at me for making a big deal out of nothing. In the other world, something terrible had happened. If I opened the door, one of those worlds would die. So I ran. I turned away from the nursery, walked fast at first, then broke into a run. I left the house. I did not lock the front door. I do not even remember closing it. I got into my car and sat there with both hands on the steering wheel, breathing like I had been underwater. Then I called my wife again, straight to voicemail. When the beep sounded, I forced myself to speak in a cheerful voice. It sounded fake, even to me. "Hey, it's me. I just got home, but something came up and I have to head back out. I might be working late. Call me when you get this, okay? Love you." I hung up and drove away. I did not know where I was going. I just drove. Around blocks, down streets I did not know, through neighborhoods that looked just like ours. I kept checking my phone, waiting for her to call back and tell me I was an idiot, waiting for her to say she had been next door, or out walking, or asleep with the baby on her chest. My heart kept racing. My hands were shaking. The sky outside the windshield looked too bright, too sharp, like the whole world was made of glass. Everything was fine. Everything was fine. Everything was fine and not fine. That was the thought that would not leave me. Everything was fine and not fine. My wife was safe and not safe. My son was breathing and not breathing. The door was closed, and as long as it stayed closed, I did not have to know. We all have our demons. That is what people say, right? I had mine too. I was scared of being a father. Scared I did not have what it took. Scared I would become like my own dad, cold and angry and useless in all the ways that mattered. I was scared of failing, so I worked longer hours. I told myself I was providing. I told myself money was love. I told myself being tired from work counted the same as being tired from caring. Normal fears, normal weakness. People manage those things every day. I should have managed mine. The sun began to slip below the horizon. The sky turned orange, then purple, then dark blue. Streetlights came on. Porch lights glowed in front of houses. Families were inside eating dinner. Children were watching cartoons. Somewhere, someone was washing dishes. Somewhere, someone was rocking a baby to sleep. I pulled over and sat in the car with the engine running. This was crazy. What if she needed help? What if she was hurt but alive? What if my son needed me? What kind of man leaves his family because he is afraid to open a door? I called her again. Voicemail. This time I said, "Hey, I'm heading home now. I'm getting worried. Please call me when you can." I started driving toward the house. Then, halfway there, I turned away. I drove in a circle, then another. I told myself I was calming down. I told myself I just needed a few more minutes. I told myself if I went home in this state, I would make everything worse. I turned back toward the house again. I was driving too fast. I did not notice until the road blurred at the edges and the tires hummed too loudly. My headlights were still off, though night had almost fully fallen. I must have forgotten to turn them on. There was a bend in the road. Then there was a fire hydrant on the corner. I saw it too late. The car jumped the curb and slammed into it. The crash was loud, but not as violent as it could have been. My seatbelt locked against my chest. The airbags exploded in front of me with a hot, dusty smell. For a few seconds, I could not hear anything except a ringing sound. I was not hurt, not badly. My chest ached and my wrist hurt, but I was alive. The car was not going anywhere. I sat there in the dark, surrounded by white powder from the airbags, and started laughing, not because anything was funny, because my body had no better idea what to do. Then I cried. After a while, I called my wife again. Voicemail. I'm worried, I said. My voice broke on the words. Please call me. Please. Then I called the police. I told them I had been in an accident. I told them my wife was not answering her phone. I told them she was supposed to be home with our baby. I told them I was worried something might be wrong. The woman on the phone asked me questions. My name, my address, whether I needed an ambulance, whether my wife had any medical problems, whether there were weapons in the house. I told her there was a gun, but it was locked in a safe. I told her it was not loaded. I told her everything I was supposed to say. She said they would send someone to check on her. After I hung up, I crossed the street. There were neon signs on the other side. A liquor store. I had not been there in years, but I remembered it from when we first moved in. Back then, I had noticed it and thought it was ugly. The kind of place that made a nice neighborhood look less nice. The prices were higher than I remembered, not high enough to stop me. I do not remember buying the bottle. I do not remember walking back to the car. The next thing I clearly remember is waking up in the back seat, confused and cold, with my mouth dry and my head pounding. For a moment, I did not know where I was. Then everything came back in pieces. The house, the closed door, the baby monitor, the safe, the crash, the police. My phone was buzzing in my pocket. I pulled it out, but it stopped before I could answer. One missed call. It was not my wife's number. A voicemail appeared a few seconds later. I stared at it until my vision blurred. Then I pressed play. Good evening, this is Officer. I shut the phone off before he could say anything else. I took another drink, then another. The liquor burned all the way down, and I welcomed it because it was a feeling I understood. It was simple. It was pain with a clear reason. I squeezed my eyes shut, but tears came anyway. My wife would be so angry if she saw me like this. That was the thought that came to me, ridiculous and sharp. She would stand in the doorway with that tired look on her face and ask how I could come home drunk when she needed me. She would ask how I could make everything about myself. She would ask why I always found a way to disappear. And she would be right. I could not go home like this. Not drunk, not shaking, not with the police maybe waiting there, not with the answer already spoken into a voicemail I could not force myself to hear. So I stayed in the car until my head started to clear. Then I opened the door and stepped out. I started walking, not toward home, away from it. I do not know where I am going. I do not know how long I can keep walking. I do not know what happens when my phone turns back on, or when someone finds me, or when morning comes and the world refuses to stay half one thing and half another. All I know is this: as long as I do not hear the message, I do not know what the officer said. As long as I do not go back, I do not know what was behind that door. As long as I do not open the box, that cat is still half alive.